So as many of you know, the Dragon Ball series is no stranger to video games, as it seems like every year or couple of years we're getting a new entry. The series even to this day is still one of the most popular anime and manga to date, so it was only inevitable. What was also inevitable was that many of these games would be fighting games. I mean, that's the Shonen Jump trope, so it only makes sense. The only problem I always had with it is that there's just way too many of them in my opinion. I mean, I get it, fighting is what these guys do, but after a while they all tend to blend in together where only diehards could really tell the difference between each game unless it really stands out from the rest like Fighters did, for example. So because of it, I rarely get into fighting Dragon Ball games, but I am always interested when a title does decide to try something different, whether it's a beat 'em up, card game, or in this case, action RPG. Even if it's just another retelling of the events of the Z portion, I'll at least be curious about it. So back in the earliest 2000s during that transitional moving period from Ontario to Alberta for me, at the time emulation had become my main way of experiencing video games that I didn't play before. I was only around 14 to 15 years old, still in high school with no income since what place was actually going to hire me back then. So I had to rely on that for a while and I got to experience some games that I probably would have never tried otherwise. One of those titles was Legacy of Goku 2. Now I know what you're thinking, well the title card says I'm talking about the first game, and I am. Just setting it up so keep watching you impatient fuck. But anyway, emulating most of this trilogy was surprisingly difficult back then. I could not get this game to run whatsoever, like it would just boot up and say not playable or something. So I just moved on to 2 and remember really enjoying my time. And due to that good experience I had, it was always in the back of my mind that I will play the first game someday. So as the years went and the emulation software for the GBA evolved, I was finally able to experience the game that eluded me for so long. And I played it for about 5 minutes and was like, nope, just fucking no. Cause this game made me appreciate Legacy of Goku 2 so much more than I already did, cause this is honestly one of the worst games I've ever played. I mean, I can't even enjoy this in a so bad it's good irony sense. This is just fucking horrible. If you've been watching me for a while, you know I try my damnedest to point out the positives for even the most badly reviewed games out there. So for me to flat out consider a game really bad should not be taken lightly. But let's get into this mess. So Legacy of Goku is, as I mentioned, a real-time action RPG, whereas you play as Goku throughout the events of the Saiyan and Frieza arc, fighting mooks and story-specific bosses to gain experience points and level up to make that monkey boy stronger. And as you do, you explore different areas and participate in side quests for added experience points. On paper, it sounds like a pretty good idea. Sure, it's another retelling of a portion of Z, but unlike the fighting games, they could potentially flesh out things a bit more instead of just being more of Z's greatest hits. But sadly, this game fails on all fronts. In terms of story, you think the team would have been able to get more out of an RPG and have it feel closer to an adaptation. Unfortunately, it's a bit of a loose one, partly because you're only playing as Goku. Because of this, a lot of scenes would get the axe in the first place, and it's pretty deceptive at first. When you start a new game, it immediately begins at Master Roshi's house, and after a little fetch quest of nudie magazines, Raditz shows up and it'll play out as you expect. Gohan gets kidnapped and Goku and Piccolo chase after him to defeat him. But before that, we got some stuff to do before trying to find his kid. You know, like helping an old man cross a river, helping a little kid get his toy boat back, or help find a little girl who's gone missing. Over, you know, finding your own fucking kid from the evildoer sibling that literally beat the shit out of you not too long ago? I don't know, I mean yes, Goku is pretty dense at points, but he's not this fucking neglectful. Well, he is, but you know what I mean. This just becomes a huge problem throughout. I don't mind a side quest here and there to help pad the game out more, and if done right, they can actually be pretty fun. But this one way too overboard with it, and honestly it just kills the opening portion cause I got bored really quickly. And it's why after my first time playing it, I put it down as quickly as I did. Like honestly, what does finding a toy boat have to do with Dragon Ball? It doesn't. And while sooner or later the story will get back on track, I'm sure for most players it was just too little too late, and they just stopped playing, which really probably wasn't missing out on much for the rest of the story. Like I mentioned, you only play as Goku here, so many scenes would be flat out cut, since it's from his point of view only, so you won't see anything with Gohan and Piccolo training, most of the events that happen on Namek before Goku shows up. Nope, just more side quests at the most inopportune time, and usually right before a big battle. The fight is on, but random person needs help with something pointless. Yeah, that really needs to take precedence over saving your fucking planet. So if you were looking for a good RPG-like adaptation of these two arcs, well, you aren't getting it here. But what makes it even worse is, well, simply the game just isn't fun to play. Goku controls horribly. It's a top-down view very much like the Legend of Zelda series, but for whatever damn reason, Atari and Webfoot thought it would be a good idea for Goku to have NES Zelda controls. This guy is stuck to a grid and can only move in 4 directions. Mixed in with the crappy level and map design, you'll constantly get stuck on walls or prevented from getting to areas that you would think Goku would be able to slip past. Or on the other end of the spectrum, you can get into places that you think he shouldn't have been able to, like right here. It honestly looks like he's out of bounds, and oh, try flying in this game. Actually, no, don't do that, but you kinda have to because, well, you know, the game has to make you have to fly to different places that wouldn't be so obvious at the first time playing. Now, if it was just awkward and still the controls, then maybe I could find something. Just something that I could at least make me want to continue playing. But no, the combat is... Ooh, what the fuck happened here? It's Goku, easily one of the strongest characters in all forms of media, which even by the beginning of Z was still pretty powerful. At least one of the strongest on Earth, but you know, apparently the guy is fucking allergic to wild wolves, crabs, and snakes? Okay, like seriously? I know there'll be some flavor text with Goku saying there's a snake problem, but did anybody actually think these things were enemies to fight? No! They look like background elements so these levels don't look so barren. Who would have thought Goku would have been an enemy of PETA? Going around punching and killing wildlife for the hell of it? Well, to be fair, I don't blame the guy when a wolf can kill him in like 2 or 3 hits. Ugh. Oh yeah, Earth's greatest warrior done in by a cute little doggy. So you know what that means. Start wailing on wildlife to grind to get your level up so you can survive up until you finally reach Raditz, and then let the crapshoot begin cause Goku's fighting abilities are a joke in this game. All he can do is punch for the most part, or shoot a few different types of energy beams. In which, quick tip, don't punch unless you have to because you'll probably get your ass whooped because combat is worse than an NES Rocky game. I wasn't exaggerating about the crapshoot element. It feels completely random whether your punches will hit or not, and more than likely you're gonna take a few hits before you beat whoever you're fighting. Energy beams for whatever reason is a lot more accurate, and obviously due to it being a range attack, a lot safer. And no more. I struggled hard to keep playing this just to get enough footage. Many consider this to be a shitty Zelda clone that's worse in every possible way, and I cannot argue that. Like I said, this is easily one of the worst games I've ever played, and it's a shame because it had a lot of potential to be something great. Somehow, in some way, this did get a sequel. In fact, it got 2. And Webfoot Technologies should be very thankful this game sold as well as it did, because it should have never gotten a second chance. Sorry, but that's just how I feel. Don't play this, you'll honestly regret it.